talking about the time. Good call. I always almost forget that whenever we host events. So I'm going to be talking about time and project management, the surprising secrets to nonprofit success. I already shared who I am, so I'll skip ahead here. But I will tell you a little bit about the Fundraising Academy because a lot of people aren't familiar with us. So our mission is to help nonprofits significantly increase their fundraising capabilities and impact that they have in their community through proven contemporary curriculum presented by world-class nonprofit leaders, best-in-class faculty, and renowned philanthropists. And we do that through free monthly webinars. We do that through presentations like this one. And we also do more in-depth fundraising training. So most of our training is centered around fundraising. When I've presented this in the past, it really is in the context of fundraising. But I think, for one, donors are often volunteers. And so I think it applies that way. And I think our way of thinking is that everyone is a fundraiser. Everyone who works for a nonprofit, everyone who volunteers with a nonprofit, their goal is to help sustain the organization. And a lot of times that's through fundraising. So here's just a little bit about our numbers here. Sorry, let me close this Zoom so I can see a little bit better. All right, so we are an affiliate, one of 16 affiliates across the country that offers this curriculum. And collectively, our affiliate partners, we have engaged more than 550,000 people with our curriculum. And as I mentioned, we have more in-depth fundraising training, our cause selling essentials and cause selling accelerate programs. And we've had over 440 graduates of those programs. So really our content is aimed at helping people who are new to fundraising get the tools that they need to be successful and continue to grow and continue to make their organizations more sustainable. So here's just a quick map of our partners. So if you have any friends that are in these other states, tell them to check out the Fundraising Academy. It was founded by National University in Southern California. We joined as a partner in 2017, and to date, we are the only community college partner in the network, which we're really proud of, and we think it's a perfect fit for a community college to serve our community in this way. So now we will get into what we came here to talk about today. So we're going to learn to develop an organizational plan and identify prioritization techniques. We're going to identify helpful tools and resources for both time and project management. And we are going to learn the basic concept of projects. So I do know I talk pretty fast sometimes, so please feel free to interrupt me. We're a small enough group, you can just unmute, or I'll try to keep an eye on the chat too. Or if I'm missing a question in the chat, just shout out so I can take a look at it. But this is where we're heading for today. So we will start with time management. So it's funny because when we were waiting for everyone to be let in from the waiting room, Alex said quite a few of these things here. I think the first one especially.
I literally did. That's almost verbatim what came out of my mouth.
Yes. I leave the office only to come home and do the work I didn't get done during the day. He was talking about how he has to answer emails at home because he didn't get it done during the day. So I'm sure these things sound familiar to more than just Alex and I. I'm often late to appointments and feel rushed. There's not enough time in the day. I'm not procrastinating, but somehow everything gets left to the last minute. So no, you are not alone if these do sound familiar to you, but these are symptoms of time mismanagement. And so we're going to try to talk about some things that will help alleviate this, and maybe you won't be saying these quite as often anymore.
Fingers crossed.
So one of the most important concepts, I think, with time management is this shallow versus deep work. And I think it's one of the hardest too. But if you can really focus your time on more deep work, I think this is just so key to solving your time management problems. So shallow work doesn't create new value. It's easy to replicate. You can do it probably while watching TV or doing something else. You don't have to think about it a whole lot. Now, deep work, it does create new value. It's not easy to replicate. You have to really focus on it. So you can't have a lot of distractions. and it really pushes your cognitive capabilities. And so deep work, as it says on here, is all about working smarter and not harder. So think about the things that you're doing in your day that are the shallow work, that it's taking up a lot of time. Maybe you're answering the same questions over and over that volunteers have. Whatever it is, think of what deep work you can do to solve that and dedicate the time to that. So if you are getting these same questions over and over, maybe you create a frequently asked questions document and you send that as part of your onboarding or whatever it is. Or maybe it is creating an onboarding communication flow so that you answer all of that up front. People have the resources up front, and then it creates less work for you down the road. And I get it. It's so hard with the shallow work. It's like, it feels like everything is urgent. Everyone's questions are urgent. It's so hard to set aside that time to create a FAQ or whatever it is, but it's going to save you time in the end. And it's going to get you out of that loop of just constantly spending your whole day doing these little tasks here and there. So I think of this presentation, this is the slide, this is the concept that I feel can have the most impact, is if you really spend your time on that deep work, creating systems and processes or whatever it is, communication flows, to help alleviate those things that you do those repetitive things that you do every day. Another thing to think about are, we call them the queen peas of disorganization. So procrastinators, people pleasers, and perfectionists. So likely you might have a mix of these, or sometimes you might be more of a procrastinator or more of a perfectionist, that those are the things that are standing in your way of getting things done. But if you want to throw in the chat, which queen pea are you? Which one do you think is you most of the time? And while you're putting in that in there, I will share that perfectionist, that's mine right there. And especially in the beginning of my career, I spent so much time trying to get things just perfect, and it would really slow me down. And thankfully, my leader is the opposite of me. She's a lot more fast-paced than me. And so she's really pushed me and out of that comfort zone and gotten me to where, sometimes, I work in marketing, so I send emails and do flyers and things like that. Sometimes good enough or great, some is better than perfect, and you need to get it done. So let me pull up the chat here so I can see everyone's people pleaser, perfectionist, people pleaser, procrastinator. I dabble in all of these. Me too. Halfway between people pleaser and perfectionist. Yeah. So it looks like we have a good mix here. And I think really be aware of which one of these you're falling into, and try to be conscious of, make a conscious decision to try to work on it. So if it's perfectionist, practice being okay with good enough or being okay with great. You don't have to wait till perfect. People pleasers, I know that's so hard when you just want to try so hard to get people, to do a good job, but sometimes you do have to learn to say no, because it's ultimately people aren't going to be pleased if you take on too much and you're not able to finish what you've started. So just be aware of which one you're falling into and try to make an effort to address it. There's also 3 types of interruptions that we're going to go over today: people, paper, and environment. We're going to go over each one of them, starting with people and how you get organized with that. So your supporters are always your first priority. These are the people that are helping your organization thrive. They are volunteering their time, they're giving their money, whatever it may be. They're the reason that your organization continues to exist. So they always have to be the first priority. And I'm sure as volunteer managers, that comes as no surprise to you, but really keeping that in mind. And then leaders and board members, of course, they're important too. They're running your organization. But think about, will I miss another deadline or a meeting by taking on this task that they're giving me? And if not, then okay, go ahead and do it. But if you are, explain that to them and be like, look, I have this deadline that I'm trying to meet. it's really important that I get this done. Can I do this, this task that you're asking me later? Coworkers, if it's time sensitive, think about that. If it can wait, politely say no. It's going to be hard for you people pleasers, but you will get over it. You will get used to it. And so keep that in mind, that this is really the hierarchy that you need to go through in your mind when you have tasks coming from all different places. Keep this hierarchy in mind. And then family and friends, set reasonable expectations and boundaries that work for you. I know this is hard too when you're, if any of you are still working remotely or remotely for part of the time, it's really hard to set those boundaries. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, neither of my parents work in jobs that they can work from home. My dad's a mailman, so that would be very difficult to work from home. And so they didn't really get the concept of like, just because I'm at home does not mean you can call me at any time of the day. So I just started setting that expectation with them. And now, they'll text me and ask me if I'm busy first. And that gives me the opportunity to say, yes, I'm in a meeting, or yes, I'm working on this task right now. I can talk to you when I take a break around lunchtime or whatever it is. So use this kind of hierarchy to prioritize your tasks as they're all coming in from different directions. So second is paper. I feel like it's kind of weird that we call it that, because actually not much of it has to do with physical paper, but hey, that's what we call it. So email and other messages. This is hard to stay disciplined on, but schedule time slots and stick to the schedule of your time slot. So maybe, 3 times a day you check email, because that's what I find. If I don't do that, I spend my whole day in my email, and it's, yeah. So it's hard to stick to it, but I think the easiest way to stick to it is to set that expectation with your coworkers. And so they know, hey, like if I email you, I'm not going to see it till midday, and then give them other ways to get to you if you're not working in a physical office where they can just walk up. But give them other ways where if it really is urgent and it can't wait till the next time you check your email. I feel like that's probably pretty rare that it can't, it can't go more than a few hours. But if that's the case, just give them other opportunities to reach you, but really stick to those time slots so email doesn't take over your whole day. Newsletters and campaign literature. Most email marketing platforms allow you to schedule. So if you're using one of those, take that, use that to your advantage. And there's no reason that a newsletter you need to be sending, working on it the day that you're sending it out. You can do it ahead of time. So use that, schedule it, keep track of deadlines, and plan accordingly. Reports. Reports are, of course, this is personal preference, but the first thing in the morning or last thing you do before you leave. And I say that because reports often are the deep work that I was talking about. You can't really do them and be distracted. So, think about when you're most productive, but I would just say the morning or just before you leave, that's where you can just set aside some time and really focus on it. And then projects, set aside 3 to 5 hours a week to avoid the last minute rush, and send others a calendar invite too, so that they can block off their calendars. That's something that we do on our team a lot. So I do it on my own personal calendar, like preparing for this session, for example. I blocked off time last week so that I could go through the slides and, add additional resources and things like that. So I knew it's something that I had to get done. It's something that's easy to push off because I think, oh, I have time. It's not till the 18th or 19th, whatever today is, 19th. So I block off the time on my calendars and I treat it like a meeting. So other people don't try to bother me because they see it blocked off. And then we do this for our marketing team too. We will just set off a time and do a working session. So if there's a big project that we're working on, we'll say, okay, let's just take, 2 to 3 today and let's all work on it together. And this worked really well in person. We still do it virtually too, and it works, but it was great in person because we could just totally focus on that one task and then move on. And then number 3 is environment. So phone calls, visual distractions, comfort factors. These are the 3 main things with that. Phone calls, kind of like the email thing. Scheduling daily time blocks for outgoing phone calls can be really helpful. So you just, you move from one task and go to the next. Then incoming phone calls, you would answer according to who is calling. So thinking back to that people slide, if it's a supporter, a volunteer, or a donor, probably going to answer it. But if it's not urgent, let it go to voicemail. And then when you have those outgoing call and those time blocks, you can return it then. And personally, I try not to return phone calls on my commute. Some people love it. That's what they like to do. But the reason that I don't, and I think that others shouldn't, is just, for one, if you need to pull something up, like maybe you're going to reference a report or whatever it is, you can't do that while you're driving. Maybe you could do it on the light rail or something like that. But it's harder to do that. And then your attention is not fully on the person that you're talking to. Even if you're ride sharing, you're doing it something where you're not actively driving, still you're not giving them your full attention. So we would say, try not to return calls on your commute, but of course, life happens. And if you have to do that, you have to do that. Visual distractions, open office environment. If that's the case, then you can choose a seat with the least distracting view. If you're at home, try to, it's hard with kids. I've learned, I had a baby last year, and I'm learning that being in a house with her while working is very difficult. So I try to get myself in a room where she's not running in and like yelling and everything else. And a funny thing about this open office environment, my colleague, she loves just talking to everybody, and she's super outgoing. And so she really struggles in an open office environment because she just wants to turn around and talk to people all day. And so when she picked her desk in our office, she picked the corner where she was facing the wall. So that way she wouldn't be as tempted to talk to everybody, like talk to people as they walk by. So she knew that about herself, and she chose, a spot that would help her be more productive. Comfort factors, of course, if it's too hot, cold, dark, bright, speak up and get it fixed. In our office, we had these awful fluorescent lights that were giving everybody headaches. And so we just, reached out to maintenance, and because it was really affecting people's productivity. You wouldn't think that just lights would do that, but, and we got it fixed. And then wear comfortable clothing that won't detract from your productivity. I think that's been a big bonus of being able to work remotely. I've been working remotely since last March, and I've loved the comfortable clothing that I've gotten to wear. I feel like I'm much more productive that way. Oh, thanks, Julie. All right, so making a plan. So we have several different things here. These are ideas for helping you manage your time better. So what I'd like you to do, and you can do it in the chat, or you could just write it on your own piece of paper, but I'd like you to choose 3 of these and make a plan to act on them. So an example might be for conquer clutter. If you really just feel like maybe your desk is really messy and it's just distracting you and you feel like you're not being as productive, maybe conquer clutter is one that you would do. So you want to define the results, and you want to set a time frame and a deadline. And it can be as big or as small as you want it to be in any of these things. We'll just do the desk, for example. So if you want to conquer clutter, then you would write down, your plan would be, I want to clear off my desk and make sure everything is organized by next Friday, or whatever it is. So if you want to just choose 3 of these things, and like I said, in the chat for yourself on a piece of paper, or if you're taking notes on your computer, but just think about, what do you feel like you could benefit the most from? What is standing in the way most of you being productive with your time, and choose those. So I'll give everyone just, a minute or so to do that. We're going to talk about some task management tools, so we may be able to help out with that one. Alex said he wants to organize my desk and organize my digital clutter, my files for ongoing projects, digitizing physical notes, and pulling out action items, adding action items to Trello. Yes, I need to do that too, Alex. I feel like we talked about being in short staffed and everything. And I feel like that can really build up when you have so much going on. And it gives me so much anxiety, the digital clutter. Like if I have a bunch of files in my downloads folder or all over my desktop, I after a few days, I just have to sit down and be like, okay, we need to organize this because it's really distracting. And yeah.
I feel the same way because like that I have a system of keeping levels of entropy and chaos to a minimum. But yeah, when the stuff explodes and that system gets all screwed up, things just get lost, forgotten. It balloons really quickly into chaos.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we'll go ahead and move on from this slide, but try to do a few of these. Even if they're small, they can really make an impact and help you feel a lot better, help you feel a lot more productive. So another thing to think about is focusing your time by prioritizing. So number one is more one-on-one time with volunteers. And we say the same thing when we teach this to fundraisers and about donors, but really creating that connection with them where they really feel like they're part of the organization and they're valued is so important. It helps you retain them and it helps with recruitment because if they're having a great experience, they're going to want to bring their friends. So really, even though it can be time consuming, even though you may be thinking, oh my gosh, as maybe you're talking with someone and you're just like, oh my gosh, I care about what they're saying, but I have like a pile of things on my desk to do. And I just really need to get back to it. But that's the work that's going to help make the rest of the work easier. So spending one-on-one time is really important. Creating more efficient volunteer management strategies. So that's kind of back to that deep work that I was talking about. Creating strategies, systems, whatever it is that help with efficiency so you can spend more time one-on-one with volunteers. And then number 3 is more high quality targeted marketing lists. And so with donors, that's usually, to make sure you understand what part of your organization they're passionate about, what about your mission resonates with them. And with volunteers, I really think that it's the same, really knowing what they care about with your organization, what types of things they like to do as far as volunteering. Because if you don't keep that kind of data, then you just send out one big ask to all these different people, and a lot of people that they're not going to care about that because they only like this specific, they only like to volunteer in this way. Maybe they only like to volunteer at events or whatever it is. If you know them, you can segment those audiences when you make these asks, when you do these call outs, and just be more effective with it. So you're asking the right people the right question, essentially. And one way to prioritize is with A, B, and C. And so A being the most pressing items that need to be done quickly, B, items that can be done at any time within the next week or month, and C, nice to do at some time, or the parking lot. So within our organization, we actually have a Google Doc called the parking lot. And that's where we put our ideas that we really love, but we just know we're in the thick of it right now. And it's just, we can't dedicate time to it, but it is a really great idea. So we move it into our parking lot. And then when things calm down a little bit, we can go back to that document and start pulling out some of those things and start acting on them. And you can do this A, B, and C on, you can have a master to-do list, monthly, weekly, daily. you can work that prioritization into these different to-do lists. So every day, that's how I do it. I sit down and I say, okay, what are my A tasks? What are those tasks like I have to get done today? And I put them in order. So, and then I just work my way through them. So, and you can use whatever tools you feel most comfortable with. I like to put reminders on my calendar. So if there's a task I absolutely have to get done, I will put it on my calendar. So it pops up, it gives me the little notification, and it reminds me several times. So, that's a really good way to do it as well. I'll get water real quick. Here are some articles and books, and I believe I can provide this presentation. I believe you all can send it out to everyone. Okay, yeah, so you can get the links to these, but we have a really good blog that one of my colleagues wrote about time management techniques. And then here's a few others that can help. And then here are some tools. So as I said, whatever you're comfortable with, and a lot of these are free or have free components. Slack, of course, a lot of people use that. Canva is not necessarily a time management tool, but it can save you time, and that's why we have it on here. Canva is a tool to design graphics, even if you are not a graphic designer. It's super, super easy to use, and you can save a lot of time doing it. Prezi to make really nice looking presentations. Hugo is one that I've used that it connects to your calendar, and then the notes can go directly on your calendar. You can put agendas in it. It's just really nice and all in your calendar, so you don't have all these notes documents here and there. It's just directly on the invite, and so anytime you were to go back to that on your calendar, you could click and see your notes. You can click to see the agenda. Flow, calendar, Doodle, Clockify, Google Suite. We at the college use Google, and so I find for me, I really like Google Tasks because it puts it right on the right side of my email. So it's just right there, front and center. I can see it all day throughout my day. And Microsoft To Do, whatever works best for you and your team. Just make sure, that it's something that you can stick with, and that it's sustainable. Now we will go into project management next, but before we do, does anyone have any questions about the time management piece? You can unmute or put it in the chat.
Well, one of my questions from earlier on the presentation was like tips on how to say no. But I feel like that's a question with so many other components to it, like thinking about like, do I need to take it on or delegate? Do I just need to learn how to take a pause and not give an answer right away? Like there's so many other elements to that as I was thinking about it that I don't really know where I was going with that, but the how to say no component is so important, I think. And I don't know, do you have any tips on what that looks like for you, for example?
Yeah. So saying no is really hard, especially when it's your boss, or especially when it's something that you feel like really passionate about. You want to do it, but you just don't have the time for it. And for me, I feel like, for one, I try to say no, but so no, I'm not going to be able to get it done this week, but we can do this other thing for you. And I try to manage the expectations so that I don't have to say no as often. So working in marketing, people always want to come to me last minute. They have an event next week and they're like, hey, can you create all the materials for it and market it and get
our marketing team has the same issues from other people here.
Yeah. So that's a constant struggle in marketing. And so I just spend a lot of time in our team meetings and everything reminding people, hey, 4 to 6 weeks, that's ideal timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I don't have to say no as often if I set up those expectations up front. And same with, I really focused on getting people to tell me their deadlines as soon as they make a request, because a lot of times they'll send me an email and say, hey, can you do this thing? And then it takes a few emails back and forth where I have to get all the details and I have to find out what the deadline is. So we've really focused on saying, okay, if you have a request, one, get it to us early, and make sure you have everything you need by then, and tell us what your deadline is, and then we can tell you if we can do it or not. And so really doing that has helped to where we don't have to say no as often. But when we do, I try as much as possible to give them something helpful. So even if I'm not going, the full length of what they were expecting us to do, at least they feel like they got some help, some direction. So for an example could be in marketing, if they want us to create a graphic for social media or whatever it is, I can be like, yeah, our graphic designer, she's really busy this week. We're not going to be able to get it before your event, but here's Canva. You can check that out and you could create something. So still trying to be helpful, and not just flat out, nope, can't help you. Sorry about your luck. That's, I guess, that's what I try to do. That's the best tip that I could give.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Diane said, if it's a supervisor, I remind them of the deadlines that I currently have and ask them which is the higher priority. Yeah, that's a really good one too. And I usually, I let them, my supervisor know, yeah, I'm happy to do that, but this other thing is we're gonna have to, that's gonna be a couple days late. Again, just setting the expectations as much as possible. I feel like that really helps. All right, then we will go ahead and go into project management. So as I said in the beginning, everyone that works in a nonprofit, we're all fundraisers. Well, we're all project managers too, man. We just wear so many hats. So we are all project managers. So what is a project? We have the Project Management Institute's definition: a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So that's the technical definition, but really a project could be anything. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here, is that everything that you do, not everything, but a lot of what you do is a project. And so whether your title is project manager or not, you are managing projects on a daily basis. And so we're going to go through how you can do that more effectively. So the project lifecycle, there's a lot of different diagrams out there of what the steps are of the project lifecycle, but this is the one that we use. So there's initiation, planning, execution, and project closure. And every project pretty much follows these 4 steps, and we're going to go through each of them. So initiation, what's the project for? What are the goals? What are the limitations or constraints of this project? And what problems might your team encounter? So in my role, I do a lot of events. So I'll just use that as kind of the framework, the project that we're doing in this presentation. So an event, one thing we might do, well, for example, we have a quarterly impact breakfast, and it's a free 1-hour presentation for HR professionals. And we do a variety of soft skill topics. Like we just did one yesterday on employee engagement. So the purpose of this event is really to give people a taste of what our training is like, and so that they might be interested in purchasing that training for their own teams. So that's really the goal, is to let people see our instructors, let people see our curriculum, and the goal is to hopefully generate some sales of training out of it. So with that, of course, when the pandemic happened, one of the big limitations was that we had to transition it from in-person to virtual. So then we had to think about what constraints, our attendees might have, as far as we work with a lot of cities and governments, and the platforms. So certain cities can't use certain platforms, that kind of thing. So just think through all of that in the initiation phase. With planning, we have what deadlines and timelines do you have to consider? How often do you need to check in? You don't want to micromanage, but you do want to make sure that you guys are making the progress that you need to. A lot of times for big projects, at least in the beginning, we will do in our organization, we do weekly check-ins, even if it's just 15, 30 minutes, just to make sure that we're all, on the same page. In the planning phase, you also think about who is on your team and who needs to be involved, and play to the strengths of each person that's involved, and make sure that everyone has a say. And then this phase 2 is where you think about how success will be measured. And with events, I feel like across the board, all different kinds of organizations tend to leave this part out. And so they just have an event to have an event. And they don't think about what are we going to look at to determine if this is successful and we need to do it again. So really setting that expectation up front of, success looks like a certain number of attendees, or success looks like a certain number of, people who fill out volunteer applications after the event, or whatever it is. You just want to define that early. So some common KPIs or performance metrics, and these are just general that can apply to a lot of different projects, but of course, ROI, what your ROI looks like, how you measure that is going to be different, but that's almost always going to be one of the metrics that you use. Deviation of planned budget, did you spend more than you expected? And if you didn't, that might be fine. If depending on what the goals were, did you bring in more money than you expected? Percentage of on-time deliverables, that's a big one. Planned hours worked versus actual hours worked. That's huge when your project is, when you're developing something new and you don't know how much time you're going to spend. And so you really need to keep track of that. So, was this all worth it in the end, or did we put so much time into it that actually the payout wasn't what we thought it was going to be? So think about what metrics work best for you and your team. But this planning phase is when you want to do that. Now the execution phase. So that's when you actually do the project. So thinking about who needs to do what, and most likely you'll have a to-do list of some kind. Now that could be a spreadsheet, a shared spreadsheet, something like that. It could be more informal, depending on the type of project, where after each meeting you send out an email that has the action items. Really depends on the scope of the project, but just keeping that on track so that you can stay on track with the goals, the deadlines. And it's really important that not only do you stay on track with the deadlines, but you're not losing sight of the mission of the project. So always keeping in mind those goals that you set at the beginning. Why am I doing this event? So as I mentioned with the impact breakfast, we're doing this so people see what our training is like. So we want to make sure that we're choosing a topic that is engaging. We want to make sure that we're bringing, an engaging presenter that is going to connect with people and make them want that presenter to come train with their organization. And then develop the service, product, fundraising strategy that this project is aiming to create. And then the fourth phase is project closure. So with this, are all your stakeholders, all those people we talked about earlier, are they happy with the service that you delivered? Whether with an event, did the attendees enjoy themselves? Did it meet your leadership's goals? Did the scope align with what was actually delivered? And then it's important to always do a plus delta. We've been doing impact breakfasts for, I want to say like 3 or 4 years quarterly. So we've done quite a few of these, but still after every single one, we do a plus delta meeting where we think about what went well, what could be improved upon. And so that's something that you keep on iterating. So don't get comfortable and think, oh, we don't need a plus delta anymore. We do this kind of project all the time. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. It doesn't even have to be a meeting. It could be just a shared document, but really taking the time to reflect is important no matter how many times you've done that project. So with all of this, that's the general life cycle of a project, but one size does not fit all. So it is going to go through these stages, but what metrics you use, how you track your tasks, all of those things, it's going to depend on the project. It's going to depend on your timeline, the scope, all of those different things. So skills for successful project managers. As I said, we are all project managers now. Congratulations. So some skills to be successful in your new role. Organization, teamwork, communication, creativity, critical thinking, leadership, especially if you're the one that is, managing the project. And that might be, even if your title isn't, even if you're not a supervisor, even if your title isn't a leadership role, you can still be a leader on your projects. Problem solving, and of course, prioritization that we talked about earlier. So in order to make sure that your project goes smoothly, we need to make sure that you're managing your time well and you're getting those tasks done on time. So here are some ways that you can improve your project management skills. As I said, you'll have this presentation, so you can click out to that. Udemy, they're super cheap classes. I've learned a lot of different things on there, like Adobe, Creative Suite, all of those things I learned there. LinkedIn Learning, YouTube, of course, there's so many videos out there. Or if you really want project management to be a more formal part of your career path, then you can become PMP certified from the Project Management Institute, and you can add that credential to your resume. So we talked about tools for time management. Here are some tools for project managers. You likely already use some of these: Trello, Asana, WorkZone, ClickUp, Wrike. Our district uses Wrike. It's a request intake tool, so people can fill out the information there. If they want an event, they give you all that information up front and send it in, and it gets put into a task list. So those are just a few. Now, with this presentation, I always like to focus on this slide, and that these things matter too. So if you don't have work-life balance, you don't have all of these other things control, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough water, exercise, you're not eating right, it's very hard to be successful in time management, project management, when you don't have these other things taken care of, because it just comes down to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you don't have these basic things taken care of, then it's going to be very difficult to focus on all this other stuff that we've talked about today. So it's so important to think about your own well-being in all of this, and make sure that you are, as much as you can, having these things under control here. So I'd like to go ahead and test what we've learned with a fun little competitive quiz here, which looks like we have a small enough group that we can do it. So give me 1 second to pull up Kahoot. Has anyone ever used Kahoot? Okay, Michaela, looks like you have. We like to incorporate these into our team meetings all the time. We've done a bunch of trivia, things like that with our teams. So let me see here if I can share that window. So you can access this on your computer or on your phone, but let's go and get started. So on your computer, phone, whatever you want to use, go to kahoot.it, and you're going to put in this game pin right here, 6424731. And that's what you're going to use to be able to answer the quiz questions. So it'll ask you to put in your name. You can have fun with it, or you could just put your normal name, whatever you'd like to do. Give some more time for everybody to get in. All right, looks like we probably have everyone, because a couple people had another meeting to jump off to. So we will get started. So you're going to answer on your device. Are you ready to become a time management and project management superhero? Your choices are, of course, let's do this, or I'm already a superhero, duh. Now with this, you're trying to be as quick as possible, but of course get the right answers, but that is how these are scored. You get more points the quicker that you answer. In this case, both of them were correct. So here's our leaderboard. Maddie was the quickest on that one. So now we'll get into the real questions. True or false? You should always return phone calls on your commute home. All right, everyone got that one right. That is false. Oh, Maddie is still quick. Number 3, how many phases are there in the project lifecycle? 1, 2, 3, or 4? There are 4. Most of you got that one correct. So initiation, planning, execution, and project closure. Maddie is on fire here. Answer streak of 3. Alex, you're making your way up there. All right, number 4. Which of the following is not a queen P of time management? Perfectionists, procrastinators, purposeless people. All right, there you go. So what was, Alex, what was that other one? The third one?
Perfectionist, procrastinator, people pleaser, of
Yes.
course.
Thank you. All right, let's see how the leaderboard's doing. Claire has the highest answer streak. Nice job, Claire, but Maddie's still hanging in to that top spot. Go to the next question. Which group of people should be the highest priority within your nonprofit? Supporters, leaders and board members, or coworkers? All right, everyone got that right. So of course, your leaders and board members are important too when it comes to prioritizing your tasks and your time. This is where your time should be. Still, Maddie, hanging on. All right, next question. Shallow work requires a lot of cognition and creates substantial value for the organization.
I haven't felt this competitive in a very long time.
False. Yes. Deep work requires a lot of cognition. It's very close though. Everyone's pretty close. If someone was just a little bit slow on a few taps. Number 7, which of the answers below is a useful time management app? So this one was another trick question because they were all correct. So this one was just purely whoever was the quickest. There you go, Alex. All right, next question. True or false? We are all project managers. True. We are all project managers, and in nonprofits, we are all fundraisers too. All right. Very close game we have here. At what point in the project lifecycle should you determine what KPIs or metrics you will use? Initiation, planning, execution, or project closure? Planning. Yes. Nice job, everyone. There you go. Alex is in the lead. And Paula
I'd like to
has
thank my
streak.
mom, my dad.
All right. Question 10. Which of the following is not a common KPI used in project management? Return on investment, deviation of planned budget, cost of goods sold, planned versus actual hours worked. All right, most of you got that one correct. Cost of goods sold. That is correct. It's a good metric, but not one of the common KPIs used in the project management. Getting a little bit more discrepancy between the leaderboard here. Which step is not part of the project closure phase? Choosing your project team, confirming goals met, getting the sign-off / approval from donors or leadership, holding a plus delta meeting. Project closure phase. Choosing your project team. Yes, if you are choosing your project team at the end of the project, that is probably not the best time to do that. I'm not sure how you got through the project if you did not have your team chosen. Number 12. Which of the answers below is a great skill for project managers to have? Organization, teamwork, communication, creativity. This is again one where all the answers were correct. Number 13, true or false? Every project is the same and can be performed with the exact same process. That's false. It'll follow the same life cycle, but it's not the exact same process. All right, this is our last question. So everyone get ready. Hit that button quickly. Having a work-life balance is an important part of successful time management. That's true. So let's see our leaderboard. Paula in third. Nice job, Paula. George in second. And in first. Alex. Nice job. Would you like to give a speech?
Oh, I feel like this must be what Olympians feel like, you know?
It's basically the same.
Yeah, that's fun. I've never done that before.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's really easy to create, and they have a free version as well. So I think ours is $10 a month, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Next time you should play the music. The music is very integral to the game, I think.
Yes, will do. All right. 1 second, let me get back to my presentation. So any questions? That actually does wrap us up. So any questions?
I had one.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you could talk more about like how to control interruptions and also about procrastination, because like that's the one that resonates with me most, and I don't.
Yeah, so I think I'm learning I'm a mix of people. Yeah, so with procrastination, I think blocking off the time on your calendar, I feel like can really help, because if it, blocking it off ahead of time, right? And so maybe that's when you first get the task or whatever it is that you're procrastinating, to immediately put it on your calendar. And that way it doesn't get to the day before and you haven't done it. And even if you put it on your calendar and let's say you put it off, just keep putting it on your calendar and try as much as possible to hold yourself to it.
Okay, thanks. And like for controlling interruptions, like
Oh yeah.
what do you mean by that? Like people coming to ask you a question, or like
Yeah.
interruptions that you like create yourself, like by like looking at your phone, or
yeah. So really any of those things. So the people, paper, environment, all those are like types of interruptions. And is, just think about what are the ones that are stopping you from getting your work done, and then what can you do about it. So if it's Alex over there in the background distracting you all the time. Uh, then if that's the case, then, you know, maybe if there is another place that you can work. I know for me, I love my team, but when we are in person, we have trouble staying on task because we start a conversation and then before we know it, like we've been talking for 30 minutes. So my background here is actually our office, and I like to go in, this is our collaboration area. I like to go up there sometimes when I really have to focus. And so that way, as much as I love talking to my coworkers, I, you know, separate myself up here so that I can, you know, cut down on the distraction as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I had one to see if you had any tips. I really like the plus delta process, and it's something that I've kind of heard about before loosely, and it's been a while and I've forgotten about it. But I feel like some of the challenges often are if we get to that stage about like assessing how something went and how we did and what the things we would change in the future are, we get to that point, we discuss it, and then it stops there. Do you have any tips on like the implementation of like improvement and future efficacy from those types of discussions?
Yeah, I would say when you hold the plus delta meeting, like having clear next steps, define it in that meeting. So if it's an event, then it's okay, when are we going to do the next one? You know, or even if you don't know that yet, like let's get a meeting on the calendar to discuss this next time. I think just really doing that will help make sure that, because yeah, sometimes we have all these great, you know, insights that we've learned here and then you never act on them. So just really setting clear next steps, I feel like can help make sure that you put those into action.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I will put my email here in the chat. It's really long because not only is my name long, but then our website is long too. So that's my email, and then I can go ahead and grab my LinkedIn too if anyone would like to connect on there. And I just want to thank everybody for attending today, and thank SAVMA for asking me to present. If you have any questions, or if you ever I know you guys are Southern Arizona, but if you're ever in the Phoenix area and would like to get together for coffee or anything like that, talk about marketing, talk about nonprofits, I'm here for it.
Yes, thank you so much, Alex. It was
Thank you.
awesome. That was Julie said it perfectly. This was amazing. This was a really helpful presentation coming at a busy time, I feel like, for many of us. So thank you so much.